Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing the expansions for Hellbringer. There's a bunch to get into over here, so let me just get you caught up with the basics. Hellbringer is a solo or cooperative dungeon crawl kind of game. It's not really like a full dungeon crawl with tiles, but you're simulating a dungeon crawl through the use of cards and enemies and all of that. We'll do a short overview of that shortly. Then there are two expansions to the game that came with the original campaign, Quests and Events, and then Loot and Merchant. Those are going to be the two expansions that came with the original game. I did review the original prototype way back when. I'll link to that down below if you want to see my thoughts on Hellbringer. At the time, I had not played any of the expansions. I have since played the expansions, but at the time, I had just only played the base game. So those are the two original expansions. And then in the current active campaign, we have the Forbidden Spells, the Bestiary and Forbidden Spells expansion. This adds new mechanics as well. This is the new content over here. This is the prototype rules component subject to change. The rest of it is all stuff that is already released. Speaking of which, there is currently a crowdfunding campaign. I'll have a link to that down below. So we kind of got you loosely caught up. There's Hellbringer, the base game, solo, cooperative, single shot, and campaign mode. Then there's two expansions that were already put out, and then there's a new expansion currently available. I will not be heavily diving into the base game. Again, you can check out my original thoughts, but the very condensed version of it is Hellbringer is a game in which you're going to take control of a character. Well, each player can have their own character over here. You can play it solo or cooperative. You can even two-handed. You can do all of that stuff. But you're going to have your character. They're going to have their stats, and then you're going to have a deck that you're going to be building, which is going to be the dungeon that you're working your way through. That dungeon is going to be giving you good things that you draw from. You're going to be getting spells and items and gear and all these various things that will help you out. Skills, I think they're called skills. You're getting a whole bunch of different things that will help you out in your adventure. But then you also have enemies, and you're going to be managing your stats in the game because you have anything from your basic health to your armor. You're going to have how far you can see. That depends whether an enemy is in your range or not, although enemies can always hit you, which is less fun. You have your action points, you have how many skills you can have, and then you have your cards in hand. And these are all skills you can boost because as you kill enemies, you're going to be adding them to your XP pile, bumping up your various stats in the game. Your goal is to effectively take down these enemies before they take you down. If they kill you, well, your adventure's over, you're dead, that's it. But alternatively, if you make your way through these levels, you'll eventually face off against the demon at the end. He has two sides, you have to defeat him on both sides, but then eventually, if you do that, you win the game. That's the basic idea of Hellbringer in a nutshell. There's single shot mode, there's a campaign mode, so there's a degree of progression where you can unlock things, or you could just dive in, grabbing some items from your starting class, grabbing a perk, and then just going straight to it. That's a very basic overview of what the game is doing and how it kind of operates, but there's a lot more to it, but we're not doing that. We're talking about the expansions today. So, let's talk about the various expansions, starting off with the Loot and the Merchant. Loot and the Merchant is going to be a new sideboard. I'm going to move this over here so you can see it a bit better over here. But you have a new sideboard of, well, Loot and the Merchant cards. Whenever you defeat an enemy, you're going to get loot. That's going to come from this deck over here. You can go ahead and gather it. Often it's going to be things like gold over here. Simply, we got 5 gold. Other times it's going to be other cards that correspond. Well, we're not going to get into what the loot deck is. Loot deck mostly is going to be giving you ways of getting money. That's the loot deck. You're also going to have portals that get shuffled into the various decks. The way you build the deck is actually one of my least favorite parts of Hellbringer. We will talk about that soon. But you start off by building the deck of what you're going through. And then as you do that, you're going to have basically 5 core piles, and you're placing portals into various piles. And when you reach a portal, you can go back to the town, at which point you can start buying things with the various treasure you've gained. So for example, this card is, this is Arcane, oh, this is a fun one, by the way. Arcane Potential. You may learn a skill from any class. Normally in the game, you can learn skills from your own class. If you have a skill from another class, you can use it, but it's discarded when you use it. So you can't be someone who's like a knight with a giant fireball. This lets you be a knight with a giant fireball. I'm using a hypothetical example, but this lets you learn a skill from another class. It's an incredibly cool card. This is the kind of stuff that the expansion adds to it, giving you more ways to do fun things in it. Basically, whenever you reveal a portal, you're gonna have the opportunity to buy cards from the merchant deck. That's going to be the Loot and Merchant expansion. It gives you ways of getting treasure, and it gives you ways of spending treasure, and it gives you portals where you can return back to town and therefore spend your treasure in the game. Pretty straightforward. We'll get to thoughts and opinions at the end of it. Then we have the quests and events. The events are also pretty straightforward. You draw an event at the start of your turn, you resolve whatever that event does. You may reorganize all of your XP. This, by the way, this is a great event to get later on because reorganizing your XP gives you so much flexibility to adapt to the current dungeon situation. But this is a terrible card to draw turn 1 because you don't have any XP. Then again, there's some events that are like do nothing, so I mean potato potato at that point. But the events are anything from good to bad to do nothing, which I guess you could argue is completely neutral. But the events give you just new things things that are happening to you as you go through the game. The quests over here, the quests are going to be giving you things like over here, we have a side quest, have at least 20 under your treasure, and then you get a reward. They give you various things you can do that will help you out. It also gives you locations as well. It's called quests and events, but it gives you locations. It changes the way the locations work in the game. Basically, there's always a location in play. This just mixes up the way that's handled in the quests and events expansion. And then we have the new expansion, the Bestiary and Forbidden Spells. This one introduces 2 new classes. The first expansion introduces new classes. We have the Necromancer, which I have over here, and then we have the Alchemist. Each character comes with their own, like, their own gear stuff, their own perks that they have. This bone shell for the Necromancer, for example, plus 20 armor for each companion in play until the start of your next turn. Basically, he's literally using a bone shell. Combine that with the Necromancer Undead over here that returns to his hand on a regular basis. You have lots of new characters, well, 2 new characters that give you new ways to engage with the full dynamics of those characters, of course, as you continue to build them out as you normally would in the game. That's going to be the 2 new expansions, the 2 new characters they add. They also add powerful dice. These can be used by you or against you. Normally the dice in the game, you have 2 normal types over here, and again, prototype, that's why dice are going to be different over here. But you have these dice, which are just 5s on 3 sides, and then 5s on 4 sides, and then nothing on the other side. Then this side dice over here gives some nothing, some 5s, and some 10s, and these are 5s, 10s, and 15s. These more powerful dice, some enemies will be using them, some of your cards will be able to use them, so it gives you more powerful spell dice, as well as you also have the new mini bosses in the game that are basically these bosses that show up halfway through the dungeon. They're not as strong as the final demon, but they do represent a more elite enemy that you have to take down. So basically new content in general. There's new cards for all the various decks, but then there's new characters, new powerful dice, new powerful spells. There's new powerful spells in the game that are incredibly game breaking, but often require you to discard a bunch of stuff. There's just more powerful spells, and then more powerful those mini bosses as you go. So it's a little bit of everything in this expansion, but definitely some highlights like the powerful dice, the mini bosses, and then of course the new characters. That's going to be all the expansion content for Hellbringer, which I guess is a good time to dive into my thoughts and opinions. I'm going to start off with the negative. The negative is the fact that one of my least favorite parts of Hellbringer to begin with is the initial setup of the game. This is one of those things that is not a big deal if you are playing this on a regular basis. On the other hand, if you're someone like me who might play a game and then play it a few times and then come back to it 9 months later and try it again, that means you have to refresh yourself on what the setup steps are for those games. And for me, Hellbringer is one of those games that it's really not hard if you're doing it on a regular basis. It's more that when you come back to it after that first play, like, when you come back to after having not played it for 9 months, that first time coming back to it, you're gonna have to be like, okay, I have to do this, put these decks, put this at the bottom of those decks, shuffle this up. I'm making it sound worse than it is. It is a little tedious. It's not the end of the world. But then when you mix that in with the expansion stuff, because the expansion has rules as well, it just means that, again, that first thing is going to be tedious to get up, because now you're not just doing the base game. You have to be like, okay, we have to do this, but then this expansion makes us do this, and this expansion makes us do this. It is not the end of the world, but it does mean that the initial onboarding of playing a game of Hellbringer, especially with the expansions, especially if you haven't played in a while, is much more fiddly than I would like. It's one of those things that often makes me not want to dive into it when I haven't played in a long time, but then once I do, it's pretty straightforward. So both things are true. It is straightforward once you're doing it. It is mentally a small challenge in the way of, like, I don't want to have to go through those steps. It's like, I remember Set a Watch is another game, random tangent over here. Set a Watch is another game that kind of has that system. So if you've played Set a Watch, I think it's a very similar vibe there, where it's really not that complicated, but it's a little annoying at the same time. If you've played Set a Watch, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, then I don't have another comparison. But that's going to be the main negative of the expansion content. Outside of that, the expansion content is almost exclusively good stuff. I mean, there's nothing bad about the expansion. There's 3 different expansions here. But the quests and events over here, sorry, not the quests and events, the loot and the merchant is easily my favorite expansion because it literally just gives you more fun things to do. That's what it does. It gives you more fun stuff to do, more cards you can get, more ways to break the game. That particular one over there, which I don't know why I'm just putting this in front of you and taking away, but that particular card I showed you, it's one of the coolest cards because it lets you break the game, and breaking the game is always fun to do. So overall, there's like just nothing bad about that expansion. You get more stuff, you use it to buy cool stuff, you return to town. It's just fun. I love the Loot and Merchant expansion. The only thing you're adding to setup is those portals, which again, it's tedious when you're mentally all adding it together, but on the other hand, if you're playing Hellbringer, you're just adding a portal at the end of, I think it's decks 2, 3, 4, and 5. You're just adding it to the bottom of there. Pretty straightforward overall. Then you have the quests and events. The quests and events. Quests and events, the side quests, I don't know if I care for strongly. Like, it's nice to have, I guess, but I wasn't so into that. The events, similarly, like, it's nice to have. I'll probably play with them more often than not. The nice part is there's not really a lot of extra setup there. The locations are a little extra setup, but the quests and events are just nice to have. I don't mind them, but like events are always tricky because since it's random, good, neutral, bad, all of that, like when you get hit with events at different points in time and how it affects your game, it's going to just mix up your experience in ways that are less predictable. Overall, I like the variety it provides. I don't feel as strongly positive as I do towards it as I do towards the loot and merchant. And then the Bestiary and Forbidden Spells, this is a little bit of a jack of all trades. I will say the new character classes, very cool, but then again, I think most of the character classes in this game are already pretty cool, but having 2 new character classes is great. The mini bosses halfway through the game, I like that as a nice kind of halfway scaling point. I find games like this often suffer from a degree of sometimes the core structure you can get through pretty consistently, except for those freak accidents, but then you get to the end and whether or not you power through the end feels different. This gives you kind of a halfway point, which is nice to have. So I like the mini bosses, those are fun to have in the game. I like the new character classes. I like the new powerful dice, although dice are always a little bit like the difference between a 5 and a 15. You could be rolling a handful of these. Like if you roll 3 of these, you can be hit with 15 damage or you could be hit with 45 damage. That's a big range of damage on those dice. So again, that's just, I like them when I'm rolling them. I like them a little less when the opponents are rolling them, but I do like the additional type of damage. Like it's nice to bump it up to 3 types of damage, a little bit more things to be mindful of as you play. And then there's the additional cards of all the other types that go into the various decks. Those are nice to have. The super powerful spells, as cool as they can be, I don't love discarding a bunch of stuff to when they resolve. So like they're good for when you're in a pinch, but overall, this is still nice to have. So overall, my opinion on expansions, let's go ahead and rate the expansions. Regular reminder as I dive into ratings of the expansions, I rate expansions not based on my overall experience of the game, but rather, and Hellbringer for me is a 4 out of 5, and I don't think the expansions change that for me. I don't think it makes it better, I don't think it makes it worse, but I do rate the expansions based on what they bring to the game, how they improve my gaming experience. To that end, I'm going to be rating the Loot and Merchant expansion a 4.5 out of 5. I really like it, it's just more fun stuff. The Quest and Events is a 3 out of 5 for me. It's nice, it's fine, I just don't know if I'm strongly positive towards or against it. And then the Bestiary and Forbidden Spells is another 4 out of 5. 2 new character classes is cool. If it was just that, it would be a little lower rating, but it also adds new content to the game as well. That none of them are I'm not as positive as any of those as I am about the Loot and the Merchant, but they're still all nice to have and give you additional ways to engage with the game, more cards, more content, and between the 2 new characters and the mini bosses, those are definitely elite monsters, I believe they're called. Elite monsters, those are all nice to have. So that's my ratings, that's my review and ratings of the 3 expansions, 2 old and 1 new for Hellbringer. You can check out the campaign currently on GameFound. I'll have a link to it down below. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this helpful in some way, and as always, I hope you have a good one.